You call this a misunderstanding, Dad? My voice, to my own surprise, was remarkably steady, despite the telltale tremor in my hands as I held up his tablet. Because to me, private messages don't usually involve discussing a secret business deal behind Mom's back with the lead investor's daughter. My name is Addison, and this is my story about how I navigated a treacherous web of ambition and deceit, ultimately choosing my own path, sketching a future far grander than anything I'd ever been permitted to dream. It was a quiet Tuesday evening, the kind where the hum of the refrigerator seemed louder than usual, and the soft glow of the table lamp cast long shadows across the living room. Rain pattered softly against the window pane, a rhythmic counterpoint to the uneasy silence that often settled over our meticulously designed, yet increasingly sterile, family home. I was on the hunt for a presentation on my father's tablet, a crucial joint project for our family's architectural firm, Reed and Associates. We were on the cusp of a major expansion, the Infinity Tower project, a sprawling luxury resort development that promised to be the crowning jewel of our portfolio, and the pressure, both professional and personal, was palpable. My mother, Alina, had spent countless sleepless nights meticulously crafting the initial concepts, her passion evident in every detailed sketch and rendered image. Instead of the presentation, I stumbled upon a series of incriminating messages, a digital breadcrumb trail leading directly to a clandestine betrayal. They were between my father, Richard, and Olivia Sterling, the meticulously polished, overtly ambitious daughter of our lead investor, Mr. Sterling. My heart hammered against my ribs as I scrolled, each message a fresh stab. They detailed a chillingly clear plan to sideline my mother, Alina, from the upcoming resort project, despite her being the lead architect, the very visionary who'd painstakingly crafted the initial concepts. Olivia, darling, Alina's too traditional for this modern vision. Her ideas, while technically sound, lack the contemporary flair Sterling is looking for. One message read, its words dripping with a condescending arrogance that made my stomach churn. We need fresh blood, a bolder aesthetic to truly impress Sterling and secure the next phase of funding. Another read, I've arranged for Alina to be consulting on the older projects. It'll keep her busy and out of the way for the critical design reviews with Sterling. You'll handle the presentations, of course. My hands trembled, the tablet suddenly feeling like a molten brick as I scrolled through months of deceit, a timeline that shockingly began right after my parents had announced their ambitious plans to expand the firm. It was a calculated, deliberate undermining, not a sudden lapse in judgment or a moment of weakness. It was a meticulously crafted betrayal, orchestrated behind the scenes. Just then, my father walked in, humming a tuneless melody, a faint smile playing on his lips, oblivious to the storm brewing within me. He had just returned from one of his late-night networking meetings, his tie slightly askew, a faint scent of expensive cologne and something subtly floral clinging to his suit jacket, something that definitely wasn't Mom's perfume. Addison, everything all right? Still looking for that presentation? I thought I left it in the work projects folder. He moved towards me, reaching for the tablet, his eyes, usually sharp and discerning, now softened by a weariness I'd begun to notice more frequently. I pulled it back, my grip tightening, a steely resolve hardening my gaze. You're darn right I'm looking for something, Dad, I said, my voice unwavering, though I could feel a tremor in my hands that mirrored the tremor in my soul. And I found it. You call this a misunderstanding, Dad? I held up the tablet, the incriminating texts glowing accusingly, the damning words magnified by the screen's backlight. Because to me, private messages don't usually involve discussing a secret business deal behind Mom's back with the lead investor's daughter. Especially when that deal involves systematically erasing Mom from a project she poured her heart and soul into. His smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of panic, a telltale shadow of guilt crossing his face. He lunged for the tablet, his composure cracking. Addison, you're looking through my private correspondence. That's completely out of line, a gross invasion of privacy. His voice rose, a desperate attempt to shift the blame to make me the aggressor. I sidestepped him, holding the tablet high, out of his reach. Private correspondence with Olivia? Really, Dad? The same Olivia you said was just a networking contact when Mom questioned your late nights at the office. The same Olivia who now seems to be your co-conspirator in this, this hostile takeover of Mom's career. The words were laced with a bitterness I hadn't known I possessed, a cold fury bubbling beneath the surface of my controlled exterior. He tried to recover, running a hand through his slightly thinning hair, his face contorting into a mask of feigned exasperation and injured pride. Aliner's been so focused on the firm's legacy lately, Addison. She's become stagnant. Too comfortable. She barely notices the future. We need to adapt, Addison. This is about adapting, about staying competitive in a rapidly changing market, about securing the firm's future, our future. He gestured vaguely, as if the grand sweep of his hand could somehow erase the damning evidence, could transform betrayal into a necessary business decision. The Infinity Tower is a huge opportunity. We can't afford to be sentimental. It's about being pragmatic. My heart ached, a sharp, piercing pain that cut deeper than any anger. This wasn't about adaptation. It was about ambition, raw and ruthless, cloaked in the deceptive guise of progress. It was about discarding loyalty for profit, integrity for expediency. "So this is about adaptation, Dad?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, the weight of his betrayal pressing down on me. "Or is it about greed? About pushing Mom aside for a quick buck, a new face who's willing to play by your new, twisted rules?" The unspoken words hung heavy in the air, a thick, suffocating silence filled with the stench of his deceit. He looked away, unable to meet my eyes, and in that moment I knew. The depth of his betrayal was vast, a chasm that had suddenly opened between us. I finally turned and walked away, leaving him standing there amidst the wreckage of his exposed lies, the rain still pattering softly outside, a mournful drumbeat. The air crackled with the weight of what had just transpired, the silence now deafening. Later that evening, as I tried to make sense of the tangled mess, curled on my bedroom window seat, staring out at the rain-streaked city lights, my phone buzzed. It was my grandmother, Clara. Her voice, usually a comforting balm, now grated on my nerves, dripping with a false concern that felt more like a calculated manipulation. "Addison, dear, I just heard a whisper about some unfortunate misunderstandings. Let's discuss this rationally," she began, her tone overly sweet, like a saccharine poison. "Every family business faces challenges during expansion. These things happen. Tempers flare, words are taken out of context." I explained, my voice tight with indignation, about the secret deals, the blatant plan to push Mom out, the sheer audacity of it all. I recounted the messages, the timeline, the cold, calculating nature of the betrayal. Clara, however, seemed to brush it off with a dismissive wave, a practiced flick of the wrist. "Richard sometimes strays when he feels pressured, darling. He's always been a bit of a maverick, driven by ambition. Perhaps if Aliner had been more flexible, more forward-thinking, more willing to adapt to the modern landscape, this wouldn't have been necessary," she mused, her words a thinly veiled criticism of my mother, a subtle shift of blame. A wife should prioritize her husband's vision, shouldn't she? Especially when that vision secures the family's future, the legacy of the firm. Though I suppose this behavior explains why you, Addison, at 28, are still content with a junior partnership. You're too idealistic now, dear. Too focused on these moral quandaries. Walking away from this opportunity, from the stability and prestige of the family business, would be foolish. Who else would offer you this kind of family connection, this guaranteed path to success? You'd be starting from scratch, out in the cold. Her words were a chilling echo of a sentiment I'd heard far too often. Loyalty over innovation, family ties over individual growth, an insidious pressure to conform to their rigid definition of success. The unspoken threat was clear: stray from the path, and you'll be adrift. And then, surprisingly, my own mother called, her voice strangely echoing Clara's sentiments, a note of strained pragmatism replacing her usual unwavering support. "Addison, honey, your father told me about the misunderstanding. All founders make tough choices sometimes, darling. It's part of the game, the ruthless reality of business. It's not personal, it's just business. You're not getting any younger. Do you want to be stuck in Mom's shadow forever? Always the junior partner, always designing the auxiliary structures, never the lead. This expansion is his chance to truly solidify the firm's standing, and ours." She urged me to understand Dad's ambition, to see it as a necessary evil, a pragmatic step for the firm's future. It was as if she, too, was caught in the gravitational pull of their legacy. A legacy that seemed to demand sacrifices I wasn't willing to make, a legacy built on sand. But as I stared at an email that had arrived just that afternoon, glowing on my laptop screen, an unsolicited offer for a senior design position at a prestigious international firm in Tokyo, a firm renowned for its avant-garde projects and innovative design philosophy, something within me solidified. It was a position my father had often dismissed as too ambitious for me, a frivolous pursuit that would only distract me from the real work of the family business, a path that led too far from his control. The idea of being stuck in Mom's shadow suddenly felt less like a safe harbor and more like a gilded cage. The thought of forging my own path, unburdened by their expectations, suddenly felt less daunting and more exhilarating. "You're right, Mom," I said, my voice firm, a newfound resolve coursing through me like a strong current. "I'm too idealistic now, too focused on integrity, on authenticity, on actually earning my success rather than inheriting it." I took a deep breath, the decision already made, the fear of the unknown giving way to a surge of defiant courage. "I have to go. I have a call with HR about my sabbatical cancellation. I'm accepting the position. I'm going to Tokyo." I hung up before she could respond, before she could launch into another well-worn lecture about loyalty and legacy. "Let them write their own narrative," I muttered to myself, a small, defiant smile playing on my lips as I clicked accept on the email. "Let them spin their tales of misunderstanding and necessary sacrifices. I'll be too busy writing my success story, a story that doesn't require me to compromise my values." I began preparing for my departure in quiet earnest, a silent rebellion simmering beneath the surface. Each day, the city of Tokyo, a vibrant metropolis of innovation and endless possibilities, loomed larger in my imagination, a beacon of hope. I started selling off old design drafts I'd meticulously created for the firm, pieces I'd once been so proud of, now tainted by the revelation of my father's duplicity. Each sale, each transaction, felt like a small step towards reclaiming my own narrative, a chipping away at the foundation of what I had once considered my destiny, a symbolic act of liberation. I also quietly began to research the firm I would be joining, Tanaka Global Designs, poring over their groundbreaking projects, their philosophy of sustainable and audacious architecture. The more I learned, the more excited I became, a stark contrast to the suffocating ennui that had begun to settle over my work at Reed and Associates. My sister, Brooke, ever the family loyalist, perhaps more out of a sense of obligation than genuine affection, confronted me one afternoon as I was packing up a box of old sketches, separating the wheat from the chaff, discarding the designs that no longer resonated with my burgeoning aspirations. "You're selling your designs already? What's the point in keeping them? They're part of your portfolio, part of the firm's history," she exclaimed, her voice laced with a mixture of confusion and thinly veiled accusation. "Mom's been trying to reach you for days, you know. She's worried. And Clara invited us all to a family dinner tonight. She says she wants to talk things through, to clear the air, to mend fences." She sounded genuinely concerned. There was an edge of desperation in her voice, a plea for normalcy, a desperate attempt to restore the illusion of familial harmony. I chuckled bitterly, a harsh, unfeeling sound. "There's nothing to talk through, Brooke. The talking's been done. The decisions have been made, my decisions, not theirs." I carefully placed a framed sketch of a residential complex, a project I'd poured weeks into a box marked donation. "And as for keeping them," I added, "I'm creating new designs now. Designs that are truly mine, not designs that will be co-opted or dismissed by someone else's agenda." She pressed on, her brow furrowed with genuine concern, or perhaps genuine annoyance at my perceived stubbornness. "Clara only wants what's best for the family, you know that. She's always looked out for us, for the Reed name. She's worried about you, about your rash decisions. Is that why Dad's already showcasing Olivia publicly at industry events?" I retorted, the words sharp, cutting through her carefully constructed illusion of familial harmony. I'd seen the photos online, plastered across various industry blogs and social media feeds. Olivia's perfectly coiffed head leaning inconspiratorially towards my father, her smile too wide, too triumphant, her hand resting a little too possessively on his arm at the recent Architects of Tomorrow gala. The images were a cruel reminder of the public facade they were so carefully constructing, the blatant disregard for Mom's feelings. Later that evening, I reluctantly attended Clara's dinner party. The sprawling dining room, usually a beacon of warmth and familial laughter, felt suffocatingly formal, the air thick with unspoken tension. I wore a simple, elegant black dress, chosen for its understated sophistication, projecting an aura of quiet resolve, a stark contrast to the carefully curated extravagance of Clara's home. The antique silver gleamed under the chandeliers, and the crystal glasses clinked with an almost theatrical solemnity. Olivia, draped in a shimmering emerald green gown that seemed to scream for attention, sat next to my father, her laughter a little too loud, her hand resting a little too possessively on his arm, as if staking a claim. She was trying too hard to be the new vision, the effortlessly modern complement to my father's forward-thinking ambition. Her conversation was peppered with architectural jargon she'd clearly just learned, trying to impress everyone with her supposed grasp of the industry. Clara's smile, usually a formidable weapon in her social arsenal, was strained, a thin, brittle line across her lips. "Addison, dear, how brave of you to come," she purred, her eyes sweeping over me, assessing, judging, trying to discern the extent of my knowledge, of my resolve. "We were quite worried about you. This sudden shift in your career path." Her tone implied I was having a crisis, not making a deliberate choice. I endured their pitying glances, the hushed whispers that ceased abruptly when I looked in their direction, the thinly veiled condescension from distant relatives who seemed to revel in any family drama. I played the role of the disillusioned daughter, the one who couldn't quite grasp the harsh realities of the business world, the one who had made an impulsive decision out of spite. The air was thick with their unspoken judgment, a heavy cloak of expectation draped over my shoulders. Olivia, meanwhile, kept casting smug, victorious glances my way, as if to say, "Look at me now. I've won." That was until the front door opened, and a figure I recognized immediately walked in Mr. Hiroshi Tanaka, the CEO of Tanaka Global Designs. A ripple of surprised murmurs spread through the room, followed by a hushed, deferential silence. My father's jaw dropped, a piece of roasted lamb falling from his fork with a clatter that echoed in the sudden quiet. Clara's wine glass clinked against her teeth, nearly shattering. A maid, startled, dropped a tray of hors d'oeuvres, scattering olives across the pristine Persian rug. Mr. Tanaka, a man of quiet authority and piercing intelligence, impeccably dressed in a dark suit, walked straight to my end of the table, his eyes finding mine with a knowing glint, a subtle smile playing on his lips. "Addison," he said, his voice a calm counterpoint to the sudden tension in the room. "Glad I caught you before your big move. I wanted to personally wish you well and thank you for choosing Tanaka Global." Clara, recovering from her initial shock, her face a mask of bewildered politeness, stammered, "Mr. Tanaka, what a surprise. We weren't expecting you. This is quite an honor." Her voice was laced with an unfamiliar deference. He merely smiled, pulling up a chair beside me, completely ignoring Clara's flustered protests and my father's wide-eyed stupefaction. "Haven't you told them about your new role, Addison?" he asked, turning to me, his voice carrying just enough for everyone to hear, the implication clear. "Why haven't you shared your good news with your family?" I met his gaze, a slow smile spreading across my face, a surge of exhilarating power coursing through me. "I wasn't sure who was truly in my corner, Mr. Tanaka," I replied, my voice loud and clear, a deliberate pronouncement that cut through the strained silence. "Didn't want to seem too idealistic, you know? People tend to misunderstand ambition, especially when it veers from their pre-approved narrative." Clara's face went utterly pale, her carefully applied makeup unable to conceal the sudden rush of blood from her cheeks. My father, surprisingly, couldn't meet my eyes, his gaze fixed on his plate. Olivia, for once, was silent, her smug expression replaced by a look of stunned disbelief. For the first time in weeks, I felt something better than resentment. Liberation. The weight of their expectations, their judgment, their suffocating family legacy, lifted, replaced by a surge of exhilarating freedom, a sense of having finally taken control of my own destiny. The air, once thick with tension, now vibrated with a triumphant energy. Clara, ever the strategist, ever the puppet master, cornered me in the study a few minutes later, her voice a low hiss, her eyes like chips of ice. What game are you playing, Addison? What is the meaning of this charade? Bringing that man here, making a spectacle. Her words were barely contained fury. I met her gaze, my voice calm, unyielding. No game, Clara, just living my life. Something you seem to have forgotten how to do in your relentless pursuit of appearances and control. I walked over to the antique globe, idly spinning it, my finger tracing the route to Tokyo. She scoffed, her eyes narrowing, her voice dripping with scorn. Why would Mr. Tanaka personally recruit a junior partner like you? It makes no sense. You're barely out of architectural school with a few small-scale projects under your belt. This is a ridiculous fabrication. Maybe I'm not as junior as you thought, Clara, I replied, a quiet confidence resonating in my words, a conviction born of self-belief rather than external validation. Perhaps he sees potential that others, who are too busy looking backward, are blind to. Just then, my former mentor, David, who had recently dismissed my innovative proposals for sustainable urban planning with a dismissive wave of his hand, appeared in the doorway, his usual confident demeanor replaced by a nervous sweat beading on his forehead, his suit suddenly looking too tight. Addison, I was just thinking about those proposals you submitted last month. They were truly revolutionary. I've reevaluated them. There might be a leadership opportunity for you, after all. A new division, perhaps. We could discuss it extensively. Maybe a senior role on the Infinity Tower after all? His tone was suddenly conciliatory, almost desperate, a desperate attempt to cling to a talent he had so readily discarded. Mr. Tanaka, who had quietly followed Clara and me into the study, his presence a silent, powerful force, smoothly cut in. Too late, David. She's already accepted a better one. A global design role with far more autonomy and scope for true innovation than your firm could ever offer. His voice was laced with a quiet triumph, a subtle but undeniable assertion of power, a clear demarcation of loyalty. Tokyo's gain is your loss, David. A significant loss, I might add. David's face fell, his opportunism exposed and rejected, his meticulously crafted offer rendered utterly meaningless. He stammered a weak apology and retreated, leaving Clara fuming in silence. The days leading up to my departure were a whirlwind of activity, a blur of packing boxes, last-minute meetings with the head of HR at Tanaka Global Designs, and an unexpected surge of invitations from former colleagues at Reed and Associates. My new mentor, Kenji, a brilliant and affable architect with an infectious laugh and an uncanny ability to understand my unspoken thoughts, flew in from Tokyo a few days later, insisting on a proper send-off gathering. Mr. Tanaka's coming, he grinned, his eyes twinkling as we discussed the arrangements. He specifically asked to be included, said something about making a statement that evening. He believes in making a grand entrance and a grand exit for his people. We decided on a modern art gallery in downtown, a minimalist space of concrete and glass that felt fitting for a new beginning, a departure from the ornate, traditional aesthetic of the Reed and Associates building. Meanwhile, my father, in a bizarre display of belated concern, texted me about an upcoming presentation at the firm, hinting at a desperate desire for my input. Addison, the sterling presentation is next week. We're really struggling with the sustainability module. Your insights would be invaluable. He even attached a few drafts, clearly trying to bait me into offering free consultation. Kenji, seeing the message flash across my phone, laughed, a deep, resonant sound. Amazing how quickly they change their tune when they realize they've underestimated talent, isn't it? He then showed me an article he'd found online, tucked away in an obscure industry blog. Olivia Sterling's recent design submission for a major client, a competing resort project, had been mysteriously scrutinized, the article read, hinting at ethical irregularities and plagiarism. It also mentioned emails detailing her connections to key investors being under review. The web of deceit was beginning to unravel, thread by painstaking thread, and Olivia was clearly caught in its sticky strands. At the farewell gathering, the gallery buzzed with an energy that felt vibrant and hopeful, a collective sigh of relief for me, a palpable sense of anticipation for my future. The sleek, abstract sculptures seemed to hum with the same excitement. Mr. Tanaka, impeccably dressed in a custom-tailored charcoal suit, his silver hair catching the gallery lights, raised his glass, his voice clear and resonant, cutting through the low hum of conversation. I don't usually attend farewell parties for employees, even incredibly talented ones, but Addison's different. She's a visionary, a true innovator, a force of nature in a field that often resists change. And when I heard how certain individuals, through their own short-sightedness and narrow ambition, tried to stifle her creativity, to box her in with their antiquated notions of legacy. Well, let's just say some people mistake loyalty for complacency. And when they do, their loss becomes our immeasurable gain. He paused, letting his words hang in the air, their true meaning sinking in, a subtle but unmistakable jab at Reed and Associates. To Addison, he continued, his gaze finding mine, a shared understanding passing between us, a silent promise of support and belief. Proof that the best revenge isn't about malice or retribution, but about groundbreaking success. About building something extraordinary out of the ruins of someone else's misguided intentions. Kenji, ever the chronicler, ever present with his camera, snapped a photo of us, his phone camera flashing, capturing the moment of triumph. He instantly captioned it and posted it. To new beginnings, watch this space. At Addison Reed Official at Tanaka Global Designs. Mr. Tanaka pulled me aside later, his voice low, a note of caution in his tone, a gentle warning. You know they'll try to hinder you, Addison. People like Clara, like your old mentor David. They resent being proven wrong. They'll try to undermine you, to spread rumors, to discredit your achievements, even from afar. They'll try to drag you back into their petty power struggles. I met his gaze, a quiet determination settling within me, firm and unshakable. Let them try, Mr. Tanaka, I replied, a small, defiant smile touching my lips. I've faced worse, and I'm not easily deterred. He returned my smile, a genuine warmth in his eyes, a flicker of admiration. That's exactly why I hired you, Addison, that spirit, that fire, that unwavering conviction. See you in Tokyo. He clapped me gently on the shoulder before moving on to greet other guests, leaving me with a sense of immense pride and a renewed sense of purpose. Kenji's social media post about my new role went viral within hours. The photo of me and Mr. Tanaka, radiant and confident, quickly amassed thousands of likes and shares. My phone exploded with messages from my mother, Clara, and my father. A digital deluge of belated apologies, frantic explanations, and thinly veiled attempts at reconciliation. The firm's atmosphere, I heard from colleagues who still worked there, had shifted dramatically, a palpable sense of unease settling over the offices. Suddenly, everyone wanted to collaborate, to pick my brain, to understand my vision. They were desperate to align themselves with the rising star, the one who had clearly caught the eye of a global titan. David, looking thoroughly nervous and unkempt, sidled up to me at the gathering, his suit suddenly looking too tight, his usual confident demeanor completely eroded. Addison, I can't believe this. Why didn't you disclose your connection to Mr. Tanaka? Why did you keep this from us? This changes everything. He offered, once again, a lead architect position, a desperate attempt to salvage some semblance of control to keep me within their orbit. A brand new division, exclusively for you, a direct path to partnership, just as we discussed years ago. A blank check, practically. I merely shook my head, a sense of quiet satisfaction blooming in my chest. Keep it, David. I'll be too busy with my global design role. My future is already far grander than anything you could ever offer. My father's texts grew increasingly desperate, a flurry of increasingly pathetic pleas. Missing your input, Addison. The Sterling project is faltering. Olivia was a mistake, a big mistake, a terrible judgment call. Can we meet, please, just to talk, for old time's sake? He even sent a screenshot of a failed design review Olivia had led, clearly trying to garner sympathy. I deleted it without a second thought. Then an email arrived. Personnel update, design department. Olivia Sterling, the woman who was meant to replace my mother, had been reassigned to a minor, almost non-existent historical preservation project in a remote corner of the state, a humiliating demotion that spoke volumes about her fallen standing. Brooke called, her voice tight with desperation, a frantic edge to her usual composure. Addison, there's something I need to confess, something important. I can't keep it to myself anymore. It's tearing me apart. We met at the botanical gardens, amidst the vibrant blooms and the calming scent of earth. the gentle murmur of a nearby waterfall providing a serene backdrop to her confession. It was there, surrounded by the quiet beauty of nature, that she finally broke down. She had known about Dad's secret deals with Olivia months before I discovered them. Clara caught me overhearing them, she explained, her voice barely a whisper, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen. I was in Dad's office, looking for some old design sketches, and I heard them. Everything. Clara walked in, and she saw my face. She offered to fund my boutique, my dream business, if I helped keep things quiet, if I became her eyes and ears. She made it sound like I was protecting the family name, protecting Mom from heartbreak. I deleted messages from Dad's phone when you borrowed it, Addison. I made excuses for his late-night meetings, covered for him when Mom got suspicious. Clara said I was protecting the family, protecting our legacy, that it was a small price to pay for my future. Her words tumbled out, a torrent of guilt and self-justification. I stood up, the anger a cold, hard knot in my stomach, a familiar bitterness rising. This wasn't about protection, it was about self-interest, about selling out for a personal gain. You protected him, Brooke. You protected his mother. You protected your own ambition, your own convenience, and you did it at Mom's expense and mine. My voice was steady, devoid of emotion, a stark contrast to the storm raging within me. You chose a boutique over integrity, over your own sister, over Mom. We're done, Brooke. Don't contact me again. I don't have room in my life for that kind of betrayal. I turned and walked away, leaving her weeping amidst the fragrant blossoms, the beauty of the garden suddenly feeling oppressive. I immediately began writing my story for an online publications, Innovators series. It was cathartic, a way to reclaim my narrative, to expose the truth without fear, to channel my anger into something constructive. I wrote with a fierce clarity, laying bare the manipulation, the betrayal, the suffocating grip of a family legacy that had almost crushed me. Clara, predictably, was trying to spread rumors, telling anyone who would listen that I was having a breakdown, that my sudden career shift was a sign of instability, that I was unhinged and ungrateful. I replied to Kenji's concerned text with a simple, confident message. Let her talk. The truth hits harder. And it's coming. The editor of the publication loved my draft, responding within hours, wanting it as their featured story, a powerful narrative of resilience and self-discovery. Clara's social media post, a thinly veiled attack, appeared online shortly after. Praying for those who let ambition overshadow their roots. True success means nothing without family legacy and the strength of shared heritage. It was clearly aimed at me, a desperate attempt to frame me as the villain. It turned out my father was struggling with deadlines, since I wasn't covering for his oversights anymore, a small but satisfying victory. His inability to manage projects without my quiet intervention was now laid bare for everyone to see. When my mother called, her voice tight with upset about the article and the burgeoning rumors, I calmly exposed Brooke's involvement and Clara's payoff, laying bare the full extent of their deception, a tangled web of lies and manipulation. I hung up and, with a deep breath, blocked her number, severing another tie that had held me back. Brooke appeared at my apartment a few hours later, hysterical, her face streaked with tears, her makeup running. Clara is threatening to sue for defamation, she wailed, clutching a crumpled letter from Clara's legal team. She's saying I fabricated evidence, that I'm trying to ruin her reputation. I calmly invited her in, my composure unwavering, a sense of icy calm settling over me. With what evidence, Brooke? The truth is an absolute defense, and I have plenty of evidence to back up every word I've written. She then revealed the real reason for her panic. Clara had pulled her funding from Brooke's boutique, leaving her business, which was already struggling, in complete shambles. The boutique, Brooke's entire dream, was now on the verge of bankruptcy. I opened my door, a bitter truth on my tongue, my voice devoid of the sisterly warmth that once existed. Now, Brooke, now I'm just the woman you betrayed for a business venture. You chose your ambition over family. And now you're seeing the consequences. I watched as she left, the door clicking shut behind her, the finality of the sound echoing in the silent apartment. The article went to print, a powerful, raw account of my journey, my personal revolution. Mr. Tanaka, ever the astute businessman, ever the champion of talent, added a poignant quote to the article, a powerful endorsement that resonated throughout the industry. Addison Reed embodies the future of design. She proves that talent can flourish in unexpected places, and that true innovation often comes from those brave enough to challenge the status quo. The consequences were swift and significant. Clara's firm lost a major client, a prestigious historical society project, who publicly stated they didn't want to associate with questionable business practices and ethical compromises. The publication titled my piece, simply and perfectly, "The Unconventional Architect." The Unconventional Architect, how one woman built her own path beyond expectations, went viral within hours of its publication. My phone buzzed incessantly with messages of support, congratulations, and expressions of admiration from colleagues, old acquaintances, and even strangers who resonated with my story. It was a digital outpouring of solidarity, a testament to the power of authenticity. A colleague from Reed and Associates, Leo, texted me an update. Olivia Sterling had been placed on indefinite leave due to a slew of ethics complaints and alleged plagiarism that had suddenly surfaced, triggered by the scrutiny of her recent projects. Clara's firm lost another major client, their biggest one, a multi-million-dollar corporate campus project. The news a stark reminder of the crumbling empire she'd built on deceit and manipulation. My father, clearly desperate, his voice thin and strained over the phone, nervously asked me to oversee our biggest client, the Infinity Tower project, before I left for Tokyo. "Addison, please," Mr. Tanaka called. He specifically insisted on it. Something about wanting to showcase true architectural leadership to ensure the project maintains its integrity. He said he'd pull his investment if you weren't involved. It's our last chance. The irony was not lost on me, the desperation in his voice a bitter confirmation of his predicament. He, who had tried to sideline me, now needed me to rescue his crumbling legacy. The Unconventional Architect was trending locally, a furious thread on social media exposing my father and Clara, their names dragged through the mud they had created through their own actions. The narrative had flipped. They were no longer the esteemed pillars of the community, but the architects of their own downfall. My father appeared at my door, looking utterly defeated, his usual crisp suit now rumpled, his hair disheveled, his eyes haunted. "Mom's business is falling apart, Addison," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "Our entire legacy. Your article, your actions, they're destroying everything we built." I corrected him, my voice calm but firm, a cold certainty in my tone. "Your choices, Dad, your consequences, I merely shed light on them. I simply refuse to be complicit in your deceit any longer." Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Mr. Tanaka, his timing impeccable. "Saw the article, Addison. It was exceptional, perfect timing. The board is incredibly impressed. They want to fast-track your transfer. How soon can you leave? We need your talent here, now more than ever." I typed my reply instantly, a surge of adrenaline coursing through me. "I can leave next week. The sooner the better, I'm ready." A final text arrived from an unknown number, its venomous tone unmistakable, a desperate last gasp of malice. "You think you've won? You'll never truly escape your past. We'll see who thrives abroad, darling." It was Marcus, my father's business partner, the one waiting for me in our Tokyo office, the supposed ally who had been quietly undermining my work from the moment I arrived. I wasn't the same woman they thought they could control anymore. I was unconventional, unstoppable, and just getting started. The games they played, the petty jealousies, the insidious manipulations, they no longer had power over me. In Tokyo, at the annual design gala, a glittering affair of industry titans and rising stars held in a magnificent glass-domed event hall overlooking the shimmering city skyline, Marcus, slightly inebriated and clearly seething with resentment, decided to make his move. He stumbled towards me, his tie askew, a glass of champagne sloshing precariously in his hand, his voice slurred but loud enough to draw attention. A desperate attempt to discredit me in front of the most influential people in the industry. "Well, well, if it isn't the prodigal daughter," he sneered, his eyes narrowed with malice. "Did you know our new transfer has quite the story? A real family drama, you see. Tell them, Addison, tell them how you exploited family secrets for your own gain, how you threw your own flesh and blood under the bus to climb the corporate ladder." A ripple of uncomfortable murmurs spread through the crowd. I met his drunken gaze, a calm smile on my face, my composure unwavering. Interesting theory, Marcus, I said, my voice clear and articulate, cutting through his slurred accusations. Though I'm curious, which part upsets you more? That I brought transparency to unethical practices, or that I'm outperforming you in design innovation, consistently exceeding expectations in a fraction of the time it takes you to produce subpar work? A few stifled laughs broke the silence. Mr. Tanaka, who had been observing the scene from a distance, his expression unreadable, stepped in, his presence immediately commanding respect, silencing the murmurs. "I believe that's enough, Marcus," he said, his voice quiet but firm, radiating authority. "I brought Addison here precisely because while you were busy relying on old connections, on inherited privilege and outdated methodologies, she was actually innovating, earning her success through sheer talent and hard work, demonstrating true leadership and vision." He then turned to me, his smile warm, his eyes twinkling. "Addison, why don't you present the Q4 design projections for your team? Show everyone what true innovation looks like. Highlight the sustainable housing project you spearheaded. I believe your team's projections exceeded ours by a remarkable 40%. The sheer audacity of his statement, revealing my superior performance in front of the entire industry, silenced Marcus completely. Marcus, his face crimson with rage, bellowed an obscenity and lunged towards me. His fists clenched, but was promptly intercepted and escorted out by security, his public humiliation complete, his career effectively ended. An email from Brooke arrived a few days later, sent from a new, unfamiliar address. She had finally moved out of Dad's house. "Mom's not speaking to me still, but that's probably for the best," she wrote, a newfound humility in her tone. "I'm staying with Aunt Carol for now. She read your article, Addison, and she gets it. She says she wished she'd been as brave when she was young. I'm thinking about going back to school, maybe pursuing something creative, something that's truly mine." Clara's firm had officially announced its dissolution, a quiet, ignominious end to a legacy built on sand. The video of Marcus's meltdown at the gala, widely circulated on industry forums, reached the board of Tanaka Global, leading to a full internal investigation into questionable hiring practices within the Tokyo office, specifically regarding Marcus's past conduct. I was invited to keynote next month's International Design Conference, which, by a twist of fate that felt almost karmic, happened to be at a sprawling, modern venue where my parents had celebrated a major firm milestone years ago, the opening of their first satellite office. It felt like a full-circle moment, a true reclaiming of space, a literal stepping onto a stage that had once symbolized their triumph and now would symbolize mine. My mother even sent a cryptic email, her first since I'd blocked her number, a tentative bridge reaching across the chasm. Perhaps I was wrong. Perhaps strength runs deeper than tradition, Addison. Perhaps it runs in the blood, in the courage to forge your own path. Perhaps I'm sorry. The words were a fragile olive branch, a tentative step towards understanding, towards a possibility of reconciliation. My former university professor, Dr. Evelyn Cole, a stern but brilliant woman who had always pushed me to challenge conventions, visited me in Tokyo, bearing a bottle of celebratory champagne and a knowing smile. "When you first arrived here, Addison, people whispered that you were running away from something," she noted, pouring us each a glass, the bubbles fizzing merrily. "Running from your family's expectations, from their shadow. And now they know you were running towards something bigger than their small-town politics, bigger than their limited vision. You were running towards your own truth." My father texted, the bitterness still palpable in his words, even across the miles. "They're dismantling everything Mom and I built, Addison. The firm is a shadow of its former self. Happy now? Is this what you wanted?" Dr. Cole laughed, a rich, knowing sound. "Still making it about him, I see. Some people never change, Addison. They cling to their narrative of victimhood, unable to see their own role in their downfall. But you did. You evolved. You soared." We clinked glasses, a silent toast, our voices joining in a soft murmur, to becoming unconventional, to becoming unstoppable. Mr. Tanaka, ever the forward thinker, hinted at a regional executive director position, a sprawling new role overseeing our expansion into the Asian market. Clara's words, a relic of a past life, echoed in my mind, their meaning now twisted into a testament to my triumph. Who else would offer you this kind of family connection? My answer now was clear and resounding, filled with a quiet confidence. Turns out quite a lot of people, Clara, just not the ones who tried to hold me back. At the conference, the familiar venue was transformed, shimmering with light and energy, the air buzzing with anticipation, a true celebration of innovation. The lobby was filled with screens showcasing Tanaka Global's most groundbreaking projects, a silent testament to the firm's progressive vision. My father appeared backstage, looking utterly defeated, his shoulders slumped, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion and regret. "Addison, can we talk? Please, just a moment for closure. I need to explain." Kenji, standing beside me, a loyal sentinel, stepped in, his voice firm, unwavering. "She's busy, Mr. Reed. Busy becoming everything you said she couldn't be. Becoming the architect you never dared to be. Take your closure elsewhere." Mr. Tanaka, alerted to my father's presence, had him quietly escorted out, his departure a barely perceptible ripple in the pre-speech bustle. I took a deep breath, the spotlight warm on my face, the roar of the crowd a symphony of anticipation, and stepped onto the stage to thunderous applause. "Everyone loves a good redemption story," I began, my voice strong and clear, resonating through the vast hall, amplified by the state-of-the-art sound system. "But this isn't about redemption. It's about revolution. A revolution of spirit, of purpose, of design." My speech, filled with compelling design statistics from Tanaka Global's recent projects, inspiring success stories from my new team members, and a passionate, visionary outlook for the future of sustainable, empathetic architecture, captivated the audience. I spoke of breaking free from stagnation, of embracing innovation, of building a world that was both beautiful and responsible. "They called me unconventional," I said, nearing the end, my voice rising with a quiet power, a resonant echo of Clara's dismissive words. "They meant it as an insult. They meant it to put me back in my box. I took it as a challenge. I took it as an invitation to define my own rules." My mother, looking softer, older, her face etched with a mixture of sadness and quiet pride, slipped into the back row, her eyes fixed on me, a faint smile playing on her lips. I continued, my gaze sweeping across the rapt faces in the audience, a collective sigh of understanding rippling through the hall. "Sometimes the people who claim to protect you are actually protecting their own limitations, their own fears, their own comfort zones. Sometimes the biggest act of love is walking away, not out of malice, but out of self-preservation, out of a profound love for your own truth. And sometimes family isn't about who stays, but who grows with you, who believes in your unbound potential, who celebrates your triumphs even when they challenge their own preconceived notions." The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes, a wave of appreciation washing over me, a powerful, emotional crescendo. Afterward, as the crowd slowly dispersed, Mr. Tanaka confirmed the regional executive director position was mine, a testament to my hard work, my unwavering vision, and my undeniable impact. Clara, still clinging to the tattered remnants of her power, tried to approach various board members, her voice shrill with accusation, her face contorted with anger. "You destroyed us," she spat, her eyes blazing with resentment as she finally turned to me, a desperate, final attempt to wound. I met her gaze, unflinching, my voice calm, almost detached. "No, Clara, you destroyed yourselves. I just refused to let you destroy me, too. I chose to build, not to crumble." She had one last, desperate jab, her voice a venomous whisper. "You'll end up alone, Addison. No family, no legacy. Just a gilded cage of ambition." Kenji stepped up, placing a reassuring hand on my arm, his presence a warm, comforting shield. "Actually, Clara," he said, his voice firm, a quiet pride evident, "she has both. We're her family now. The kind that celebrates ambition instead of suffocating it. The kind that builds legacies not just of stone and steel, but of innovation and impact." My mom, her eyes brimming with unshed tears, her face softened by a genuine vulnerability, approached, saying she and my father were in counseling, trying to understand where we went wrong, Addison. Really trying this time. Brooke, too, had made a profound change, going back to school, pursuing a degree in sustainable design, finally following my example, carving out her own path. A tweet from Brooke, vibrant and full of renewed hope, appeared on my phone, watching my sister prove everyone wrong. Maybe being unconventional runs in the family. Time to write my own story. At dinner later that night, a small, intimate gathering with Mr. Tanaka, Kenji, Dr. Cole, and my new team. Mr. Tanaka raised his glass, the clinking a harmonious symphony. To our new regional executive director, Addison Reed, may your vision continue to inspire and your unconventional spirit continue to lead. I caught a glimpse of my father leaving the hotel alone, a solitary figure swallowed by the bustling Tokyo night, a poignant image of a self-inflicted isolation. You know what's funny? I said to Kenji, a wry smile touching my lips, a profound sense of peace settling over me. They thought making me unconventional would break me. Instead, it made me unstoppable. Signing my new contract, the crisp paper a tangible representation of my boundless future, I remembered Clara's words, a distant echo from a life I'd left behind. Who else would offer you this kind of family connection? Looking around at my success, my true friends, my healing family, and my brilliant future stretching out before me, a blank canvas waiting for my boldest strokes, I knew the answer with absolute certainty. Everyone who matters. Everyone who truly believes in potential, in growth, in the power of authenticity. We raised our glasses, the amber liquid glinting under the soft lights, to being unconventional, to being unstoppable. In that moment, surrounded by victory and vindication, by genuine connection and boundless possibility, I realized with a profound sense of peace, sometimes the happy ending isn't about fitting in. Sometimes it's about walking away and building something more authentic, more groundbreaking, more beautiful than anyone thought you could. That's not just redemption. That's a revolution. And it's only just beginning.